You're welcome. We appreciate it very much. We wish it was under different circumstances at times, but it is what it is.
So, Lindsey, you said you're good. Is that just a canned answer, or are you just, are you really good?
Well, a little of both, but today I am really good.
Good. Very good.
All right, so talk to us about the family. As an employer, this is a big deal to me, the family leave bill.
Yeah, so the family leave bill basically requires, it's an unfunded mandate on private business. It requires businesses in Colorado to partially fund and then employees to partially fund for a family leave plan that not everyone will use. So it's really a tax, and it really should be going to the voters like all taxes do in Colorado.
Right.
But they're calling it a fee because they're calling it an enterprise bill. So it's sort of just semantics, but basically all workers are going to be taxed so that people can go on family leave when they need it. But the thing is, a lot of private businesses are saying we already offer something better than this for our employees, or we already offer, our own plans, and you're just forcing us to change it to what you want it to be.
Which, that's what we don't like, is the government coming in and telling business how to do it. And by the way, this is how businesses can stay competitive. If they decide that they want to, right now we have a very tight job market. What I mean by that is it's an employee-driven market right now. And by the way, it's that way pretty much across the country, not just here in Colorado, but it's extremely rough here in Colorado. So, Lindsey, what employers in a lot of cases will do is, instead of just paying more dollars per hour, because in a lot of cases that's not necessarily what the employee wants, they do it through benefits, health insurance, family leave, things along those lines. In this particular case, all they're really doing is making that advantage that one business might have over another more equal, which, by the way, I don't believe in doing. Let each business compete accordingly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's just another way the Democrats are saying, we know better than you how to spend your money. We know better how to run a business.
That's right.
And I don't believe that's correct.
Well, in most cases, Lindsey, and I think I could pretty much go through most of the legislature, especially on the Democrat side. It's a little more difficult on the Republican side, but especially on the Democrat side. In fact, this would be something, maybe you could come back to us this week. I'll give you a little homework for the week. Tell me, on the Democrat side, Senate and House both. I know the history of the governor, so this doesn't apply to him, but tell me, how many of the rest of those individuals have ever written a payroll check? In other words, they've owned a business where they had to write a payroll check. I really want to know what that figure is, because I'll bet, Lindsey, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it's less than 15% of the Democrat Party that's in office right now in Colorado.
Yeah, I will look into that. I think you're probably correct.
And by the way, I think that's an important number to have, even for you guys, because when people start talking about what businesses should do that have never, ever ran one, I think it's important to let the general population know that these people are wanting businesses to do things they've never done themselves.
Yes, exactly. There's a group called Common Sense Policy Roundtable that has a conglomeration of business focus groups, and so they do a lot of studies. They're right-leaning, but so they recently came out with some conclusions. They looked at this family leave proposal, and they basically said the underlying assumptions that this bill was written on aren't correct. I mean, they're using numbers that just aren't right on, how many people they think will use it and they take this based on other states that have implemented something similar. So they're basically saying this is going to be insolvent from the get-go.
Well, and they're basically, the left is basically saying this gives people job security. Yet already we've got in place as a law a Family Medical Leave Act, where if somebody leaves to have a baby, you have to guarantee them. I can't remember if it's 90 days after. I believe that's the number. I don't do the HR stuff in my company, so don't quote me on this. But I think it's 90 days, Lindsey, where you actually have to still, as an employer, guarantee that person's job back when they come back from that particular family leave event.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So we have that. I mean, we've already got that right now on the federal books, that employers can't just fire somebody for having a baby, for example. If you decide that all of a sudden, if Cassie, you were married and all of a sudden you decided next month to go ahead and have a baby, and you had a baby, and while you were gone, Crawford lets you go, that's illegal. They cannot let you go while you're off having a baby. You've got a certain amount of time to come back and recover from having a baby. And by the way, I'm not a big one on laws, Lindsey, but first of all, I think it would be very heartless of an employer to let somebody go when they went to have a baby in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, people want to support some sort of family leave, and a lot of employers want to support their employees, but that's not the point of this bill. They're saying that the federal laws are outdated, and that's why they need these new, updated laws for Colorado. But they're forcing businesses to comply with something that's just going to harm business and therefore harm employees.
Yeah, it allows this particular one will allow, or the Federal Family Medical Leave Act allows employees to take up to 12 weeks. So I was pretty close in my time frame there. It's not 13 weeks, but 12 weeks of unpaid leave and retain their health coverage at firms with more than 50 workers. The state bill would create a fund to pay a percentage of those wages during the leave. So that particular act that we have now does not require the employer to pay that person while they're off. Colorado now would set up a fund where that would.
Yeah, a lot of employers do that anyway, just privately, and this would make, put them in an even harsher position where they either would have to implement a plan that's not as good as theirs, or, just switching things around just causes a lot of issues in a private company sometimes.
And in this particular case, too, Lindsey, I want to make sure that we point out, because those that are listening that think, well, this is a pretty good idea, actually. Well, the reality is not only is the employer going to pay into this, it's much like Social Security. You as an employee are going to pay. So even, Dan, the money that you would make here at Crawford.
Okay.
If this passes, a certain amount of money is going to get put into this fund from your paycheck and Crawford matching it, that you now get to put into a fund that, no offense, I don't think you and Carla plan on having a kid anytime soon.
No more. We're done.
But you would be participating in funding a fund so everybody else can.
Yeah, they're pretty much just picking my pocket.
That's pretty much what they're doing. Am I saying that right, Lindsey?
Yeah, they changed it to the employer gives 40% and the employee does 60%.
Okay, so 60-40. Got it.
Yeah, and so the Democrats are saying, well, it's only, $3 and something a month for the employee and $2 and something for the employer. And so it only adds up to 90, I'm not doing the math well right now, but it's only this amount per year, which I think I can decide how to spend that money without it being taken out of my paycheck.
Yeah, but Lindsey, it's only $3. Every time I hear that, I cringe. Because you ever look at your checking account?
Yeah.
What are most of the transactions that go out? There's these
$3 or $4
these small ones.
That's right, $3 or $4, $5.
That add up to huge dollars.
Yeah.
Add up to huge dollars, and they keep nickeling and diming us to death with this stuff. Oh, it's only $2 here. It's $1 there. It's 80 cents here. Well, it all adds up.
Where do we stand with that bill right now, Lindsey?
It passed out of a Senate committee, and the next step is a Senate Appropriations Committee, because it comes with some additional funding for, I believe it's implementation.
We don't need this. By the way, this fund, by fiscal year 2020 to 2021, could reach $922 million.
You know what that funding's for? You know those great posters you get to hang up in the break room?
That's what they're for.
These are your rights.
Yeah. All right.
Just drives me nuts.
We'll keep watching it, Lindsey. I mean, this is one as an employer, which employees should be paying attention to this too, because they're going to fund it 60%.
Right. The 40%.
Or sorry, 40%. That's. I mean, it's still a sizable number for both parties to have to contribute.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's employer 60, employee 40.
Employer 40.
Okay.
The employee pays more.
Okay, so employees. That's what I thought. Yeah, employee 60, employer 40.
Yes.
So out of $10, the employee would pay $6. The employer would pay $4. And you just keep that going, over and over and over again. And by the way, folks, just so you all know something, maybe you don't know this, but in case you didn't, when things like this get implemented in a state, the chances, Lindsey, of getting rid of it from this point is minuscule. The thing will be there forever.
Yeah, exactly. And they also have very loose definitions of who you can take time off, who a family member is that you could take time off to be with, which just, it's going to get abused. And, if I'm paying into a system, I'm going to want to use it eventually. And I want to find a way, if someone in my family is sick or someone, according to this bill, it could be like,
you got a third cousin having a baby, I'm going to take 6 weeks off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I fully understand exactly where you're going with this. Okay, Tabor, talk to us about that, which, by the way, is supposed to protect us from things like this, but it's getting abused, correct?
Yeah, right. So there's a bill that we talked about before to keep for the state to be able to permanently keep the tax refunds that we get under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So right now this is moving through. There was a hearing last week where the sponsor of the bill, who's the Speaker of the House, Casey Becker, one of the members of the committee asked if it's guaranteed that this money, because it's a permanent keeping of our money, if it would be guaranteed that it would go to transportation and education like they're saying. You know, when we vote on this, if it gets on the ballot, when we vote on it, we're voting for that money to go to these certain areas. And this, the committee member asked if that's where it would go. And Casey Becker said straight out, we have no control over where future legislatures put this money. And yet we're voting for it to be a permanent change. So I just wanted to point that out. You know, it's no secret that it's not necessarily going to go to transportation and education, but she just flat out admitted it. And the last time we did this, it was a temporary in between 2005 and 2010, where we agreed as voters to let the state keep the Tabor refunds. And that it helped accelerate the spending in the state. It went from $19 billion to $33 billion in just 10 years. And that really helped accelerate it because it bumped everything up. And this change will be permanent. So I'm really concerned about that. We're going to keep watching it. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to stop it in the legislature, but it will, because it's on the ballot, we can, start to educate people and fight it there.
Got it. One other thing I wanted to just chat about, because I've been gone on vacation a little bit, and I know there's been some efforts in this area when it comes to the recall sides of the fence. Are you guys keeping tabs on that, and do you have any information for us there?
We are. So there's the recall in House District 50 for Rochelle Galindo. So that's Weld County, big oil and gas area. Rochelle Galindo is a Democrat, but she ran on being the daughter of an oil field worker, and sort of campaigned as a pro-energy Democrat. And that's how she won in that area. And now she's voted for 181, which is the oil and gas regulations, and her district is angry about that. And so as far as the recalls go, there's a lot of others that are being talked about, but I think that one is the one that has the most legs and, will most likely get off the ground. Because recalls aren't cheap.
No, they're not.
I know a lot of people want to recall their legislators, but
it's not. Yeah, great point. It is not. It's not cheap. And I also want to make sure that we say something here as well. And I think this is very, very important. I put some things up on my own Facebook page while I was on vacation, Lindsey, not to stir the pot, but just because I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated at the SB 181. I'm frustrated that is going to get passed, that it passed and the governor's going to sign it. I think it's very dismal to the state. I've talked about that many times on the program. So I put some things up on my own personal page. And along those lines, some of the recall, by the way, probably the most popular post I've ever posted in my entire life on Facebook. It got more comments and people going back and forth, and not everybody on the right. I've got friends that are on the left and so on. So it went back and forth. Good banter, by the way, and I appreciate everybody that bantered back and forth. And most everybody was fairly pleasant. I had to delete one comment from one knucklehead lefty that his post had nothing to do with the particular topic, and if it's not on topic, I'm going to delete it. But point being, Lindsey, that in that process, there were some folks on the left talking about, well, you guys are doing all these recall petitions now, suck it up, you guys lost, suck it up and move on. Well, the difference between, Trump winning and having to make sure that you're a Hillary supporter and suck it up versus somebody like what we're trying to recall in Weld County, where they're going against the very things they ran on. Trump is not going against anything he ran on. In fact, he's doing every single thing he said he would do when he ran for president. It's not one and the same. So I think people that are out there saying, hey, Republicans, suck it up, you lost, that's not really what this is about, Lindsey. This is about politicians that are not keeping the promises they gave their constituents when they ran. Am I right?
I totally agree with you. And there's also some people on the left who are trying to make this about other things about Representative Galindo, such as her sexual orientation or her ethnicity, and it is absolutely not about that. There's some Republicans who have not helped the conversation by saying certain things, but this recall effort is about her oil and gas vote, period. End of discussion.
Yeah. And again, when you go against what you said you were going to run on in your particular area, you should, in my opinion, you should be recalled, especially when it's something as big as this.
I completely agree.
Well said. Lindsey, it's always great having you. Thanks a lot for all that you do. Keep up the great work. Colorado Rising Action. Give us your website.
ColoradoRisingAction.org.
Thank you, Lindsey. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right. Colorado Select Auto Care